Very good, and you can hear me? Yes, perfect. Okay. Let's start by making sure that we sit comfortably. You can close your eyes and notice your experience. You leave all ideas of what meditation is behind and just observe this moment as it is. You notice thinking, bodily sensations, emotional state, what comes through the senses, whatever is going on in the present moment. And whatever comes up, you don't have to try to control it, to fix it. Just notice that it is there, allow it to come. See if you can be fully in allowance with what is. Even if the sensations are uncomfortable, you just allow it in this moment. See whatever arises, comfortable or uncomfortable. It lingers for a while and it falls away. And even if there is something that seems to be lingering, you can notice that it's always changeful. There's always small movements in it. Even if the mind makes it out to be a static emotion or some kind of experience that is lasting, you notice that it's always in a flux. It's always moving a little bit, changing in its nature. And if you rest like this, it won't be long until the mind starts to quiet down. You start to notice this deep space behind the experience. This vast, expansive sense of being. A deep quiet, deep stillness. And in that space, you just completely allow everything to move. You don't fight thoughts or try to make the mind quiet. You just invite everything. There's no longer the censorship of the mind or controlling or categorizing. There's just allowing. You just stay as this emptiness, this deep stillness, and you just, from that stillness, there is a natural watching, a natural alertness of everything. You just notice. You might also recognize that there's not really, don't really have to try to be here. It's just natural, this. This stillness is always here. It is your nature. It's just completely obscured by all thoughts, ideas, trying, becoming different things, all this. If you just allow, you will always come here. And the practice of meditation is just to recognize that this state, if you want to call it a state, is ever present. A state with no attributes, a state of emptiness, of nothingness, that keeps everything, that gives life to everything. The basis of beingness, the first sense of I. And you can never force yourself into this state. It just comes naturally when the noise drops. When you just completely allow the present moment as it is. And this allowing is not an action. It's just no longer to uphold all actions. That's why I say that this state is not a state, because it is your nature. It doesn't want anything from you. You don't have to strive to keep it. Actually, all that sense of personal ownership or relationship to it will make it diminish. You just have to let go of that as well. Just notice that this stillness is here. Whatever you think that you are, it will still be there. It is the background to everything. The beauty of it cannot be explained. It can only be experienced. And when you get familiar with it, when it becomes normal in your life, you understand that everything, all joy comes from this. All love comes from this source. And this source has no need for division. It will only make it diminish. You don't have to be anyone to be with this source. It's better actually to be no one. And it can contain everything. Even your shame and guilt, anger, all the things that you're not proud of, everything can be contained in this stillness. It can be allowed and seen and has its chance to be done in full acceptance of our emotions. Our emotions get expressed, and with that they are done. And to come back to this stillness doesn't require any smarts, just wisdom. Simple wisdom of recognizing what you are. There is no one who is going to be liberated. There is no one who needs to be healed or freed. You just have to recognize what is not true. Recognize how the mind creates division, makes you into something that you are not, creates fragmentation. Just watch the mind and you'll see. Always coming back, watching it from this deep stillness. It's not really a doing. It is happening by itself. You just recognize. You just come back. You can open your eyes, move your body a little bit if you need to. I wanted to read a small thing from this book. I got it from Muktananda when I was in India. She's a nun that I know. She's a devotee of Anandamayama, but she said, I think you need this book. So she gave it to me. It's the Tao Te Ching, the Book of the Way by Lao Tzu. And this is chapter 45. It's just a short passage. True perfection seems imperfect, yet it is perfectly itself. Truthfulness seems empty, yet it is fully present. True straightness seems crooked. True wisdom seems foolish. True art seems artless. The master allows things to happen. She shapes events as they come. She steps out of the way and lets the Tao speak for itself. Meditation will create paradoxes. That is a part of it. It will seem like a contradiction. And there are so many of them, actually. That your greatest action is to do no action. That is strange to people. They think you get passive and that you don't do anything in the world. But then you don't understand what action and inaction is. It's not that you're not doing things. It is the identification with them. Where do they come from? Where do your actions come from? Do they come from the vast space of stillness, of consciousness? Or do they come from the egoic mind trying to prove itself? From one point, the action will just happen as it happens. It will feel very natural. It will also give the fruits that you think that the action will. And from the other point, they will give the opposite. And most people live in their egoic mind and create division through their actions, but they are not aware of it. They have this nice grown-up voice in their head that says this is the right thing to do, and usually it's just very driven by the emotional content that you're not aware of, guilt or something else. But the true action comes from the freedom of being. And this is just a good thing to be very aware of. Because it's so easy to have ideas what is a good action. And we think, for example, to be against evil things would be a great action. But that usually just promotes the thing that you don't want. You just give that more energy. Like it works exactly the same inside of you as in the outside world. If you're not comfortable with an emotion and you resist it, it will grow. It will have a larger impact on your life. If you're afraid of your own anger, for example, and every time it comes up you suppress it, you will come to a point where it boils over and you have no control of your anger in the end. It will just eat you up. And all negativity is like that. It's much more fruitful to put your efforts in positive things, in the outcome that you desire, instead of being against the outcome that you dislike. That has very little energy in that. And to allow the imperfections in yourself, to allow all the emotions that you think are wrong, that a meditator that has practiced this long, or I'm not the kind of person that has these feelings, or whatever it is, to be really, really truthful, to really allow what is there. Look at it, allow it, and it will lose its power. It's in distance, everything can have power. The egoic mind presents things, and when we don't like them, we create resistance. Most of us just mechanically, automatically. And we resist. And sometimes we just have to sit with that until we can find that we can relax and allow it. And in some situations, you really have to invite it. You sit with the stillness and something comes and you feel great resistance to that sense or feeling. And you really have to just allow deeply it to come. And it says, true wisdom seems foolish. And it will. It is so strange what is really, really working when it comes to spirituality. Because I think most people get hooked on some kind of technique, at least when they start meditation. And they reap the benefits of the technique. The mind quiets down a little bit. You feel better. But you also notice as soon as you give up this technique, you give up the mantra or this concentration exercise, it feels like you go back to how you were before. All the stressful thoughts, all the negativity or whatever it is, so easily just comes back. So at some point you start to get interested in what is it that creates real change? What creates change to the core of things? And what are the core of things? And then a very, very important question starts to pop up. Who am I? What is this that I refer to? When I walk around in my daily life, when I say, okay, honey, I'm going to the store, who am I referring to? And what is that person? What is the idea of that person? This has a profound impact on your life, but most people never question that because they will just say, I am what I am. I am this, I am the body, I am my personality, I am this collection of thoughts. But if you start to look, you will notice that the thoughts that you identify with and that you take as very, very personal, you can just watch them. And there's a shift that happens where you recognize that you are not them. And you notice that you can identify with thoughts and you can also disidentify with thoughts. So suddenly, what is this core? And you start to observe yourself and you start to observe others and you notice that, okay, I'm afraid of spiders, but my friend is not. So that doesn't seem to be a core fear that people have. It just seems... And when I examine that a little bit, I can overcome my fear of spiders. Okay, so that also goes. So fears can also move. And many people talk about fears in the way that they're very natural and biological and they have to be there to make us survive. But the fears that we create and get rid of are numerous for our lives. It's just another thing that is moving. And what makes the ego very sticky is the idea that things cannot change. Or it's too late for me. I'm too old. I'm too this. I'm too that. I'm not spiritual enough. All these things. But they are just ideas. And I'm always very transparent with you, as you know. I'm going to tell you exactly how I see it. And because hopefully that also just change your outlook on things. Because I cannot give you anything. You have to look. I want to be very clear with that. I know that listening to me and when I guide you in meditation and things like this, you might say, it's so much easier to come to stillness when I listen to you than I do it. Okay, that's fine. You can ride on my back for a little bit. But you have to examine yourself. You have to look. And you can observe yourself. You take half an hour in the morning and half an hour in the evening, and you just look. This is the most important part. If your mind is too crazy, you might have to concentrate on something in the beginning so the mind quiets down, like your breath or something. But then you just look. This is the important part. You notice the experience, you notice thinking, you notice all this. But also, when you're out and about and you just sit and wait, you can also look at people. Because they will also give you clues on how they relate to their things. They will say things to each other, or they will just have a behavior of restlessness, or you just recognize, oh, that is me. I have this same behavior, and when you see it from the outside, sometimes it can just click for you. Okay, that is what it does. That is how I also build stress about things. So this observing attitude is very beneficial for everything, and it will penetrate everything in your perception. You will start to be observant by nature. And this will allow for a much easier way to come back to the stillness. Because the deep stillness, its quality, its deepest quality is just observation. It's just awareness. It's just recognizing without being a recognizer. And first, when you will observe, you will fall into the identity of the person. You will fall into being someone who is observing, that has opinions on observing. But then you start to notice that. Then you start to notice the one having opinions. You notice the thoughts of opinions, and you recognize that there is a space deeper that is still. And even when you're listening to me right now, see if you just can recognize this space. See if your mind is getting started and there is thoughts, and notice that you can observe those thoughts. It's not one thing if I'm talking and one thing if there's a guided meditation. It is the same. I sometimes jokingly say there is no different when I ring the bell before and after. There's no different. That's just a formality. You just recognize. You just notice the experience. And it can sound like it's such a small thing. From the egoic mind's perspective, to be aware of your experience sounds like, yeah, that's a small thing. In the vast ocean of experiences, being aware seems very, very small. But to start to recognize that that is the whole thing. The awareness is prior to everything. Everything happens in awareness. It is everything. And it also says here, true art is artless. when you move about the world and do your things from this space of stillness, it can seem complicated on the outside what you're doing, but inside it is nothing. It can seem like there's a lot of effort going on. You're sweating because there's so much activity or whatever it is, but inside, nothing. And I know that you have all experienced it. You have done something that just completely fills your consciousness for a while. So you don't recognize, you don't remember for a while that you have a body even. You're so lost in the thing that you do, and then it feels like you come back again. I think that everyone has had this experience, concentrating or something, or doing something that you really like, usually. That experience is very close to meditation. That is beingness without, and especially if there is no goal, if there is no purpose, you just do it because you like it. This is what we call art, right? The pointlessness, the beauty of pointlessness. The beauty of being wasteful. And these are the contradictions. Because in society it's so much look up to be efficient and to be productive, to be a good citizen, a good member of society. And still, many people look up to the great artist, the great waster of time. The one who does strange things for no real purpose. Because there is magic in that. And of course they can be ridiculed as fools. But so are the mystics, because it is the same. It's the art of being a fool. And the beauty of that is that if you embrace that fool in you, it doesn't matter if everyone around you says, but that is not efficient enough. That is not productive enough. That is not streamlined enough. Because you will just feel the fool's beauty. Who says that life is about being efficient? Maybe your workplace says that, your boss say it. You hear it from politicians. But life is beautiful in its beingness. That's why we do things like dancing and painting and creating music and all these things. Because they are pointless and beautiful. Because the purpose of life is to live life. Not to be something. Or streamline yourself into an efficient little machine for certain tasks. That will happen anyway, I think. But the more you come back to the beauty of the present moment, the easier it will be. The more joyous life will seem. It's not complicated. And it's quite obvious in a way. It's just that it's a little bit obscured by thinking and becoming and ideas. Ideas of future and past. That we miss the most obvious thing. Being as we are. The master allows things to happen. She shapes events as they come. She steps out of the way and lets the Tao speak for itself. It's just acceptance of the present. The master allows things to happen. She shapes events as they come. You can plan things, you can do all these things in time, but if they rule you, if you're identified with the outcome of all those things, you will be completely lost. You will live your life for the future and for certain events and for the fruition that they have to come to fruition in a very certain way. But that is not living. That is taking away all your power. And when he writes, she shapes events as they come, it's just to approach the present moment and what happens in it, in that moment. And that makes life just much less complicated. Otherwise, there is so much ideas of what life is that burdens you. All that you have happened to you, all that is going to happen to you, your entire situation. Now I'm just describing how most people live their lives. But it's very heavy, and with age it becomes worse. If you never look, it just becomes more and more heavy. It just grows thicker and thicker. And of course that also has its natural pace. It makes people come to a point where they can't stand their egoic mind anymore and their strategies and their approach to life, so they have to change. It's the most beautiful outcome that can come of it. And I know that the reputation about non-dual meditation is that it is very difficult. When I talk to other meditation teachers, which it happens in certain contexts, they say that I teach the most advanced kind of meditation, and I find that ridiculous. I think I teach the most simple kind of meditation. Just be as you are. What is difficult about it? Nothing is difficult. It's a very short book. It's very short instructions. The only thing that makes it complicated is the egoic mind. It says, how am I going to go about doing that? It goes always from the point of the person and tries to become beingness. And it says, please, teacher, show me a map. Show me how I walk from point A to point Z. How do I do it? And all I can say, it's not like that. Because that map would be ridiculous. It would be like the instructions. If you're here in this apartment, then I would feel like I had to say, okay, you have to go somewhere. So you go out of this apartment and you go onto the street and you take a right and you come to the big street and then you take a right again and then you go all the way and then you take a right. And then when you've gone a little bit up that, the first road into to the right, you go there and then you go into number 4 again and up the stairs and back to sitting here. Because that would be the instructions, because it is already here. But the mind wants to go. It wants to do. It wants to have a strategy of how do I bring it more into my life? How do I do the thing somehow? But you don't have to be improved as a meditator. Does that make sense? That's also a contradiction of sorts. Because you have to do some kind of practice. So you have to strive, and you have a feeling that you're going somewhere with this striving. Maybe you meditated for a while and you start to feel, I'm getting better at this. But the question is, where are you going? And who is going where? And who is getting better? Is there, in that sense, an improvement? And if you look from a very objective standpoint, there is also at the same time the contradiction of improvement. Because if you start to be as you are and you start to give up all these ideas, your mind will start to become quiet. And that is a sign of progression. But if you give it to your mind, then it says, I'm a great meditator now. And you're lost in that. But still, you have to try. It's so strange. It's such a contradiction. Because in your trying, you can see how you are stuck. Because if you don't try at all, there will just be your automatic systems and your automatic and old behaviors. They will just continue. You will never be aware of them if you don't try to be aware of them. And when you fail at trying your meditation, you see new things. You understand that your strategies does not work. But it's the strangest thing to go into, because you know that the purpose of you going into it is to fail. Because your strategies can never succeed like that. They can just be shown to be false. And I guess that is the right way to do. And this dance of trying, being frustrated, giving up, feeling I have to change something, maybe I'm doing something wrong, all these things, the doubts about the practice, they all have to be there. And sometimes when you sit, there's just this deep stillness, this deep connection, and it feels like, why did I worry? I don't understand that person that worries about things. You have no understanding how you could doubt anything. It's just so beautiful and clear, and it's just perfectly as it is. And then one day later, did I really have that experience? Am I just making things up? And the mind just goes into patterns. Gets identified with doubt again. And the egoic mind can also become a little bit more aggressive as the mind becomes quiet. So you can have the sense of, if you listen to the mind's talk and get identified with it, that it's going quite poorly. But in actuality, you have quite many moments where the mind is silent. But the problem is sometimes that you listen to the mind's conclusions and not what is. And this idea of progression and going back again and all these things can be so scrambled in the mind, because the talk says it's like a commentator. And the commentator is colored. It has its biases. It's not commentating exactly what is happening. It's commentating what works for the egoic mind. But when you get aware of that, it also, the inner voice is not so interesting. It will lose its power. And you don't always have to be super nice with the mind. Try different things. If the inner voice is very persistent, you can just tell it to shut up. It's all right. Just try it and see. Okay, I'm done with this. You can be quiet now. And you just keep going on your walk or whatever it is. You don't have to be nice to it. Sometimes you just say no. No more talking now. And the great thing about awareness is that there is creativity there. And all these ideas of also what you can try with the mind can come naturally in this silence. It will start to play. You will start to break your patterns. Because the worst thing for the mind is just to go in the old egoic patterns. It makes it so dull. Everything becomes very gray. And as soon as you break it, even if it is uncomfortable, it can feel like all the colors are coming back. Presence is coming back. But you feel like, I have no control over my life. It's chaos in some way. But you're there. And these things are like the contradictions of the mind that you have to be aware of. Because just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean that you're not present with it. It just takes you out of your everyday rut and the things that are so the things that you're so used to. Yes. She steps out of the way and lets the Tao speak for itself. And the Tao in this is, of course, awareness. Just another word. And when you forget yourself, you always come back to it. And then it also, the interest starts to be lost to uphold it. As soon as you get a break in something, you can just allow yourself to not be a thing. Maybe you feel for a while that you have to be a thing, a person in conversations, in your job or whatever it is. You go back to it. It feels secure, you feel grounded, all these things, because it feels normal to you. But you take a walk, you wait for the bus, you wait in line at the supermarket, and you just allow the space. And you will notice that you don't have to be a someone. And that there is so much peace, so much space. Any questions today? We have Anders, Annika and Rebecca on stream, and we have Richard and Sanna in the room. Just so that you know. Richard has a question?
I always have a question.
Yes, good.
Oh, it's beautiful. So I've been thinking a lot about who I am, really asking that question, and sort of starting to feel less, maybe slightly less attached to the idea of the person, like dense in the personality, I guess. But then it's sort of, I guess it's like, maybe it's the ego just grasping and trying to understand. But I still feel like I understand that I am awareness and that there is nothing objective in that. It's just pure subjectivity. It's just everything, right? And I understand that time is just created in my mind. My past memories are just in my head. They're all personal, they're all subjective. And the future obviously is also just subjective. Everything colored by my upbringing, by the culture I was raised in, all of this just happening. And I can have some distance to that. But I think I'm struggling a little bit with is understanding who I am in the world, like in a relative sense. Because I know that I have this is interesting, this what you read, because it speaks to that, I think, and everything you said also, it always just speaks to what I'm thinking about. It's interesting. But I guess I have this idea of, I am also a person in the world. I am also Richard in the world. Whatever that means, I understand it means different things to different people. It's also subjective for everyone. But I guess I'm wondering a little bit sort of what to do with myself, like how I should be, like this was beautiful in in the reading, that you just have to sort of get out of the way of things happening. Because I guess I still have an idea, being very honest, I guess I still have an idea that I am still, like in a relative sense, I'm still a person to whom things have happened. I still have my past that's happened to me. But I guess that's just an idea, right? If you can sort of help me understand that. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
It is the whole idea of being a doer. That is a good way to sum it up, because it is what it becomes in very practical term. That it feels like you as Richard has to relate to your life as a person. You have to uphold it. If you wouldn't care about it, everything would fall apart, and all these kind of fears, right? But what is upholding it now is awareness. It is not the idea of Richard. But believing in that idea feels comfortable, feels normal, feels like it's what I almost always have seen. But you have also at the same time an intuitive sense that says that there is more to life than this separate idea of the person. Because you see what the idea, and with the identification of the idea of the person does, how it creates division, how it gives the sense of dissatisfaction, feeling small, feeling fragmented, all these things. And those things can also just be experienced they're experienced in awareness, and therefore you can also notice, you have a sense, it doesn't have to be like this. I don't have to feel alone, small, and separate. There is something vaster in the experience. But to the idea of the person, it seems logical to be a someone. And it seems scary to be a nothing. Because what is that? What is that even? But it still happens every 24 hours. You experience this nothingness of the person. You experience it in deep sleep. There's not even time. There's no body. And still, you're not afraid of going to sleep. You're not waking up like, that was a close one. And you can even notice it's different in different people, but many people experience that they feel disoriented when they wake up. When they wake up from deep sleep, they feel disoriented for a while, and then the idea of the person comes in, and all the emotions that comes with that. But if you are aware, you can notice that there is a space of freedom in this. It feels just like you're disoriented, but there is also not the person. There's no center, you can notice all these things. Because we have to uphold the idea of being someone. And since that is a phenomena, it can go. It has movement to it. But our belief in the person makes it so it feels like it is something. It seems real. It seems like that is what I am, and that is the experience that I have, that I am this. And the states of deep meditation feels also usually quite disorienting. You can lose time when you sit. You sit for your half an hour and it just feels like you closed your eyes and 30 minutes. Because you just go deep into meditation. And many of our ideas of how we perceive time comes through how much thinking there has been over a certain period of time, or what kind of experience. That's how we can notice it. And if those things go, if you withdraw from the senses and you go into a deep state of meditation, you can lose all those ideas of time and experiences for a while. I don't know if I've answered your question. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's just that for me is like just this understanding that all of these things have, it's not that they've happened to me. I guess that's the thing, right? They've just happened. And then I apply the suffix to me as a way of making it personal, making it into a person that something is happening to.
Yes.
Whereas these things are they're just happening, and you can then choose just to.
Yes, and also if you have a sibling, for example, you can talk about experience that you had growing up, and you were completely traumatized by one event, and your brother or sister doesn't even remember that situation, and you were like in the same position doing the same thing. So to one person, one event is so big. And also what kind of disposition. On the other way around also, it can be life-altering in that you just found a situation so fascinating and your sibling doesn't remember anything of it. Or other people there, for them, it was nothing special. So you also have to understand that the nature of all our experience has to do so much with what we identify with and what we look at as important. And they have no inherent nature. Because if they would have really be the profound fabric of everything, then everyone would be afraid of the same thing. They would have the same idea of what is a profound and important experience. Everything would be the same because it would be the law of the universe. You understand? But the things that are really the same, they are much more subtle. Like that everything is transient. This is a truth for everyone. If you don't believe in non-dual meditation, don't care about Vedanta, don't care about anything to have to, you will still experience that everything is transient. And if you go against that, you will suffer. And if you recognize it, it will be wisdom. It will still be the same. You might not use these words, but it will still be the same. We're not looking at anything that is created. It's not a created state of meditation. It's just a natural state of beingness. All religions talk about the same thing. They can have different words. They can fight over those words. But they still look at the same thing. The deepest aspect of the human experience is still beingness. Whatever you choose to call it. And this is a very, very beautiful thing. Because this also means that there is no accessibility that is extra if you just have a lot of money. Or if you have you're smart in a certain way. Or it is accessible to all. not everyone is interested in pursuing it, but that is different. And the dualistic part of experience is also something that has a possibility to show you the non-dualistic nature of things. Because it will all the time show you how you're stuck. And you will also sense that there are and I'm sure that you do, that there are different levels of identification. Some days you're so identified with your mind, it feels like your thoughts are like all the way here, and there's no, if someone would tell you, watch your thoughts, you would say, there's no space for that. There's no space between the one being aware of it and you're just so identified, you're so into your stuff, you feel so much of a victim of your thoughts and your situations and all that. And on another day, nothing can touch you. Everything can be observed. People can just bully you how much they want, and you will be completely unfazed. So that is like the normal movement of those identification and non-identification. But that just happens anyways. And in those spaces, we can explore that. We can observe our thoughts. And sometimes we have to go into deep acceptance of our state to just come out of it. And when you feel so victimized or so emotional around something, there can come deep acceptance, but it usually comes with tears, or you feel like screaming, or something is because it's so much, you're so much in it. And I would say that most people are not ready to just sit with their experiences because they're so emotionally charged with things that it gets overwhelming very quickly. But then you have to look at that. Then you have to find ways to express. And we will do one, if you're here in Malmö, we will do meditation next week, right? Yes, on Monday. Monday next week, and we're gonna shake and we're gonna dance. If you want to join. It is made for that. To just express. Because so many people need that. And then we sit and then we rest. So it's like 1 hour. Shaking, dancing, sitting, resting. But I think the largest hindrance is not that you're in a certain emotional state usually. It is just, do you want to know? How do you find your way towards peace? And if you're just so stuck in your emotions, okay, then you have to find some kind of way to release that. What do you do? What do you do in your everyday life? Can you find a space where you can work out and also cry? And there are spaces like that. I was a yoga teacher for many years, and I had so many students that just came, did their asanas and cried. Because it was also allowed. And it is also, it's up to all of us to create a society that is allowing these things. Because the more we allow that, and the more we bring that in, then the less people needs to go out and get really drunk to get rid of this tension. Because that is now the normal thing. And you can of course go into therapy and all these things, but the best thing is if you can handle it, your emotions yourself. That is great. Then you can regulate it. You don't need drugs, you don't need others, you don't need, you can just, okay, now I'm tense, now I do this. But we're also so used to relying on others. In our societies also, if I get sick, the doctor will cure me. If I get this, I go there and someone will give me something and I will fix it. There's very little or very few people who look at themselves and see what they can do. And experiment a little bit and do your research and talk to people about it, and then you can change the whole thing. But you have to start where you are. It's easy to hear a nice philosophy and then just get an idea that, oh, I'm pretty advanced now, I'm here. But what you really need is to cry for 3 months. Yes, but it can really be like that. Truly. The potential of the human being is so amazing. The potential for empathy, the potential for good, the potential for love. It's amazing. And on a societal level, it has very little. People are not so impressed by that for some reason. They prefer to hear about death and dismembered bodies and something like that. Then they raise their eyebrows. But people who are really peacemakers and are really loving in their life, they most of the time go quiet. And kings with armies, they make statues of them. But this is because that is what is in people. If there is pain and division, then that is the reflection. Then that touches. If everyone can be triggered, they can make you click on things. Write angry comments. So that's why negativity so easily gets boosted. And the things that are just beautiful and smooth, and when it's just such a natural creation of love, then there is not much interest because it's just nice. These small things, your relationship to the world and what you think that the world is, has a tremendous impact on everything. That is the world. And that also comes with the non-dual seeing. Because in the duality, you are a person in the world doing things. So from that standpoint, you also have to just figure out, how do I do the right things? How am I going to be a good person? How am I going to choose the right things to put my time into? All these things. But if you see that you are the world, then you see that everyone is that. And the beauty in them. However miserable or small they feel, or lonely or separate, or hateful, or whatever it is. You see their potential for love. And you feel love for them. Instead of feeling sorry for them, or wishing they could do better, or all these things. Because the discontentment does not change the world. Or it does change the world, but only to be more fragmented. And if you don't like the world, start with yourself. Don't assume. Don't go into the arrogance that you know and try to do everything from that. Be humble. Say, I don't know what I am. Because you have to be truthful. You have to be where you are. I don't know. So I'm going to look. I'm going to observe. At least half an hour in the morning and half an hour in the evening, I'm going to observe. I'm going to look, what is this experience? And when you find the stillness, you come back to it. You notice, you recognize it. And if you start to come to it, you will start to sense that that is your lifeline. And you don't want to stop this practicing. Because 2 times a day, you come to the surface to get air. And then you can continue swimming underwater. It will feel like that. And to use your time wisely is also to listen to talks about meditation, read books if that is what you like, whatever way, but just to stay with the subject, because it will open doors in you. It will change you. Because you have closed doors that you don't realize that you have closed. You might say, oh, these philosophies, I love them, I've always loved them. But you have a little door that you have closed that says, but I'm not really worthy. And that is a common one to close. And to notice that you make yourself small. You think that the subject is too big for you. It's too great, it's too beautiful. And even when you come in meditation and you notice it, you cannot fully embrace it because you are not worthy. You sit in your practice and it's just, the heart feels open, everything feels expansive and so quiet and beautiful. It's so vast. There is no of the ordinary thoughts almost. The only things that might come are some beautiful ideas. It's so shiny. And you will say, am I worthy? Who am I to embrace this? You are it. You are that space. That is you. There's actually no one who needs to embrace it. You just have to let go of this little one who says, I'm not worthy. That is true self-love. To be honest with yourself and to be with awareness as it is true self-love. Because if you can accept the vastness of beingness, that is everything. That there is no difference between you and love. And the whole world can be included in that. You will see the world from the perspective of what you think that you are. Remember that. If you look with the eyes of separation, you will see separation and division in everything. And you will be afraid of certain things, and you feel like you have to defend certain things, and you will have the tendency to go with certain groups where you feel that you can identify with them, and you will oppose certain groups that you don't identify with, and you cannot love all in that. And suddenly you're into, even though it can feel like I'm really on the right side of things, but everyone feels that. Those that you see as the opposition, they also feel like they're on the right side of things. But there is, in actuality, no division. It is created. As in the same way as we create countries and we create different ethnic groups or different nationalities or political views or isms, whatever it is. It's just all of them are imaginary lines. And when you see that it is all just a play and creation, then you can see through division. But when you are divided, you have a tendency to fall into that. Even though you have a nice intellectual understanding that the world is actually non-dual and da-da-da-da. You can have this, also argue with people and they can be against you or whatever. But you will view the world from the perspective of what you think that you are. So, if you're awareness, you will see the world as awareness, as an expression of awareness. And if you see yourself as a separate individual, you will see the world as separate individuals. It just leads to everything. And the small divisions that can seem insignificant in you, you might feel like you suffer them a little bit and all these things. But on the scale of everything, they are the thing that create war. And create hate and real division when it just scales. But we don't see it as dangerous when it's just a thought that I have, or it's just this and this. I'm just expressing how I feel about this and this, and we don't see those huge consequences of how violent we can be in division. And I understand that is not on purpose. No one wants to be afraid, I think. I think most people would love to be free of fear. But this automatic fear, it creates very strong identification with things, and you're so easy to manipulate. But the beauty is that the opposite is also true. The more you look, the more you know yourself, and the less you get triggered of things around you. Then you will also will not be possible to manipulate you. It will not be possible to trigger you. You will not be pushed around by advertising or politicians or views. Because you come back to awareness. You don't come back to your security as this person identified with this view, because then you have to uphold that. And these fears are why people like what they call the filter bubble, that they have like their own world and they only see views that they don't want their views to be challenged, because that is too uncomfortable. Because they want their worldview to be intact. That is comfortable. And I understand why you do that. But it's also creates so much division. And people create so much hate towards others that have another worldview. And it is so funny. Someone. I remember when I was younger, and I talked to someone. I think in the late 90s, and internet was starting to coming along, and some person around me said, yes, it's going to be so great now because everyone will have the same information, so there will be no misinformation anymore. I think that is very funny today. And the problem, but that is also like saying that everyone would be so susceptible to meditation because it's so accessible. That is like the same kind of logic. But in a society where you can distract yourself with so many things, meditation doesn't come by itself. You really have to actively pursue it. Otherwise, your mind is completely full. The degree of information that we take in compared to a person 100 years ago is ridiculous amounts. So our minds get filled with all this stuff. For what? But what it does is that there is so much, so many problems that come from that. So many people get burned out, of course, and so stressed by the load of thoughts and the ideas that they accumulate. So they have to actively do something. So they come to a crisis and they start to search. So I think that more people are interested in meditation than ever because of that. And that's because during the 25 years that I've been practicing meditation, it has gone from you're in a sect to a completely normal thing. And most other things have gone the other way around. But meditation has really been normalized because so many people have the benefits of it, because there's so much psychological pressure. And you can accumulate so many things, ideas and ideals from social media. Yes, you all know this. I don't have to go on about that too much. And maybe that is the beauty of it. That it pushes us a little bit to our limits. And we'd have to look somewhere else. How to live a life from peace and stillness. And that we have to make real choices. And also that we might tire of things that don't serve us. And to really question those. Anyone else have any questions? No? Happy, content, peaceful, no questions. Very good. Okay. Let's sing something. That is always good. Here. I have this sheet of bhajans that we usually sing, and I have put them on the site because Julia asked for them, and I realized that I could just put them on the site and everyone could take part of them. So they're on atmananda.org. Yes, if you want one in your home. So I thought that we could sing the Nataraja mantra. And Nataraja is the dancing Shiva. Oh, there is one. Annika has one. And yes, you can see it on the. Can you bring it to the camera, Annika? So everyone on stream can see. Oh, it's a big one. It's a Nataraja, right? Yes. And yes, and there is is there a little person down there that Shiva is dancing on? That is the ignorance personified as a little person. And the fire that's around is the fire of wisdom that burns all the ignorance. It's very beautiful, and Shiva is the emptiness itself dancing. It's a very beautiful symbol. Thank you, Annika. And the mantra is like this. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. We give thanks for everything that comes to us, that shows us the wisdom of life. We wish everyone to be peaceful, and wish everyone to find peace. Thank you. Love you all.